We're live. Cool. And we're live, folks. Welcome to the Samuel Stevenson podcast. Today, I have with me Amanda Zink from Texas Legacy Custom Homes. If you guys want to be building homes up in the Waco area, I hear that she is one of the ones who cares the absolute most about craftsmanship, making sure there's like real quality going into it. So, Amanda, could you tell us backstory? Like, how did you get into construction? You've been in the Waco area for most of your life, right?
Yes.
So when did you first swing a hammer, or like what got you into building? Did your dad build stuff, or?
So my parents are both blue collar workers. My dad was a pipe fitter, plumber, welder. And so I understood the union work and a little bit of the construction. I went to work for a builder to just kind of file some papers and do some things. And I found out I was very ADHD and liked to move around and be very organized. And so I kept asking for something to do, and everyone's like, oh, here, do this, do this. So I kept going and kept going. Ended up going out into the job sites and everything else. Stayed there 5 years, left, went to work for another builder and stayed with him for 13 and a half years, and then left that builder and started my own company.
Okay. So along the way, like at what point did you like decide you liked what you were doing in construction? Or did you hate it?
No, I love it.
Oh, okay.
I made that underneath my name. It says Texas Legacy Custom Homes. We love what we do, and it shows. And I really feel that. I feel like it is fun. It's always different. It's always creative. I can put my touches on it. Pay attention to detail, personal service. I manage everything from designs to job sites with each project. And I've built homes, but not only homes, but long-term, lasting relationships.
Cool. I would imagine that most people, when they build homes, like that's a long process with somebody. It's not like you go to Starbucks and buy a coffee.
Right.
This is like you have a relationship with this person, and you're going to be real close for like 6 months or a year or more. So as a builder, I would imagine it's very important.
So when someone comes in and says they want to build a home, I sit down and I have that conversation. Personalities do matter. Is my personality a good fit for yours? We're going to be working through this. There's going to be ups and downs. I hate to make a comparison to a wedding, but everyone has this idea of this perfect wedding. Nothing's going to go wrong.
Okay.
There's never been a perfect wedding. Something has always gone a little awry, maybe not bad, but it's the same thing with building a home. There's always going to be something that's going to be different. But as long as we're transparent and try to be honest and keep open communication and management and expectations, I think it flows really good, and I build long-term relationships with the customers, which is really neat. I actually have a lady whose granddaughter is coming to talk about building a house.
That's cool.
And I've known her since she was out there. I was trying to find a picture of her where she's hammering a piece of wood together while her mom and I were talking, and she was babysitting her for the summer, when school's out. And it was like, this is so cool. But it made me feel a little old.
That's okay. That's okay. You're still, 25 years young.
Yeah, there we go.
That's
we'll
right.
go with that.
That's right. So at any point in the process when you're getting into building, did anybody ever when you said you were going out of the field, were you ever had to hey, carry that bundle of 2x4s up here for me, or have you built anything by hand yourself, or do you that?
So when I say hands-on, I'm there making sure that the work is done and that it's quality and craftsmanship is there and everything is there, and meeting the customer's expectations. So when I started way back when, filing papers and stuff, it would say 2x4s, 2x6s, and different things. And then I'd be like, what's a rat run? What's a this or that? And then I learned to look out on the job site and learn what each one of those things were, and to be able to talk their language.
Yes.
And it made it very, very important. And I built a lot of trust and relationships with them.
That makes sense. Could you explain to any young ones who might have been watching this that don't know what a rat run is?
Oh,
what is a rat run? I know what it is, but what would you?
I don't know if I could put it into words without sounding crazy.
That's okay. That's okay. So, man, so you've been really deeply involved in construction pretty much your whole life. Did you ever consider at any point man, I'm tired of this, I'm going to go try ballet dancing?
So this may sound strange, but a couple of times I've hit some points in life and you go, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And I have just prayed on it. And I feel like God is just keep opening the door and sending more customers and showing me that this is where my passion is and my commitment is. And there are still plenty of other things to do on the side, just to have fun.
Like what kind of things?
So I have an autistic son. He's going to be 28 next week, and he is highly involved in the deaf community. And so we learned ASL, took classes.
That's cool.
We hang out in the deaf community, just things like that. There's always something you can do to volunteer and give back and help the next person along.
Right. So has building houses, since you went into business for yourself, do you feel like you kind of gained more control over your schedule and what you could do?
Oh gosh, tons. Well, let me back up and say my day is never my day.
Oh, really?
I write it out and I say, this is what's going to happen. And then this doesn't happen. And then this goes here. And that's part of just learning to be flexible and moving things around.
Sure.
And I'm blessed to be able to do that. And that has really helped to shape that.
Yeah. So you've got, no one's days ever go fully as planned. What was the transition like when you went from working for somebody else to doing your own outfit?
So I didn't expect to everything to be so instant. I had one house and I thought, okay, and I'm going to find some furniture and a file cabinet. And no, I built 3 or 4 and I had boxes with papers in each. It was my piling system is what I called it instead of a filing system. It was just all, and each house was separated and each account was separated, but it was just, I didn't expect it to go so fast. And I had to buy file cabinets and, and then the next thing you know, boy, you're up and running, and it's been great.
Okay. So very physical, like paper system.
Yes.
Is that something you still like to stick with?
I do.
Okay.
I have Excel and some of those sheets, but I use a 3-ring binder and I walk around with it like it's my Bible, and I write everything in it when someone tells me something or where I'm supposed to be or an address or even just those thoughts, like you're standing on a job site and you go, I think if we put a beam right here. So I write that down. Sure. So, cause my brain is always constantly trying to improve something and make it more functional and better for the next house.
Right. So is there some point where you might consider going fully digital, or are you just like having the tactile? Is that just the way you think you're always going to do it? I think
my brain is probably going to stay with pencil and paper or pens.
Got it.
I've tried a couple of the iPads and they're okay, but when you're standing out in the sun and it's really bright, you really can't see them, and then you're moving them around, and then you blow up one portion, and maybe I'm standing with the plumber, but he wanted to see the other side, so then he shrinks my side, and then I blow up that portion. I'm like, hey, I can't see that side now. So then we're like, it's like we need a 32-inch iPad so that I can look. And I'm like, well, you know what? They make 32-inch blueprints. That's probably pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we just roll the blueprint out, and he can look. And then say the plumber and I are discussing something, the electrician has a question. He can come over and look right over their shoulder and say, yep, there it is. And he doesn't have to say, can you blow that section up and let me move that or send that to mine? And I found that these guys aren't just real great at charging electronics all the time either. So, like you say.
Has that caused problems in the past?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've learned to work through some of that. But it's like, I've been calling. Oh, it's dead. Yeah, well, that's pretty important. So,
wow.
It just takes a little bit. But
yeah.
But the subcontractors have been great. They make me look great. They make who I am.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to keep well-trained, well-certified, qualified construction workers, subcontractors.
I would imagine having a team is quite important.
Very, very important to function together.
What is the secret to keeping a good team, keeping a good sub?
Mutual trust and respect.
Yeah.
Being able to bounce ideas and have someone say, I don't really like that, or I think I would rather do it this way. Okay. And being able to listen to each other and use your expertise to work together to complete a project.
Have you ever had, I would imagine building across 15 plus years, there's been plenty of tough times.
Yes.
So what do you do when you just you're trying a new sub and it's just not what you expected?
I just don't hire them back.
Yeah.
And then I know I try to stay with the same subs over and over and over for that reason. They know what's expected. They know what I'm anticipating to see.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, like during the building process, we walk through with the customers, and the electrician will walk through, because every person draws a blueprint and they may put the light switch in one place, but you might be left-handed. And when you walk in a room, you automatically expect to find that switch on that side, and it's not. Well, that's where we walk through and we ask them, you want it on that side, left or right? What do you feel comfortable? And everybody there is a standard, of how high you put things. But sometimes, like in garages, do you plan on putting a workbench under there?
Sure.
Well, let's lift those up a little higher. Are you going to add a welder someday? Well, let's put you an extra dedicated circuit. Let's make sure that everything is expandable to where in the future your needs are always met, even once you've moved in.
How do you keep all of the millions of little choices that have to go into a house? How do you keep track of all those?
So I do have a little spreadsheet, kind of write them down, but it's just pretty second nature now.
It's all up here.
I know to ask someone, when someone wants a door handle, well, do you want the hinges the same color? And people are always like, what? The hinges? Like, I don't know. What color do I want the hinges? And so we kind of go over hinge colors.
Okay.
Just different ideas. And it's funny because one of the common questions I get asked is, well, what do most people do? Well, each house is unique.
Right.
Each house is different. Each house is a totally new experience. So there's not a most people. There's what you want to do. And so that's why I try to listen really carefully to the homeowners and find out what they want to do and what they want to add or take away, and make sure it matches their expectations.
I would imagine that you don't do a whole lot of speculative copy paste the same house over and over.
I have never built a spec home.
Okay. Fully custom.
Totally custom. I have thought about it, but it just doesn't relate. Now, I've done a investment property for someone, and that's a little different, but it was still a sold, just a little bit different.
How was that one different? I would imagine investors, like, they kind of care what goes into the house, but in a different way.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're more just, hey, can you get me 4 rooms in here and 2 carports, and you know what I mean? And try to make sure.
Color of the hinges.
Yes, not at all.
Okay.
And a lot of them are just, oh, that's fine. Whatever, what's the most popular color? Gray. Okay. Paint it gray. So, but.
Got it. Was that fun in any way? Because it was kind of like you sort of had some freedom to choose.
Yes and no. With a lot of the customers that I develop a relationship with, they are very open to me saying, hey, I know you could paint that purple, but if you ever sell this, purple may not be your most sellable color. You could always do the counters in like a silver or a gray and add your grapes into it afterwards. Oh, that's a great idea. So they're very open. And then I say, oh, I've seen these colors, 6, 7, 8. And I bring them samples and let them pick. And hey, which one of these? And if that doesn't work, then I go down to the granite shop with them and let them walk through and pick. And then when it's time to tag it, they'll actually just put the customer's name on the tag of granite.
Oh, that's cool.
And somehow it just doesn't get old to walk through there and see Texas Legacy and the customer so-and-so on there. It's just, it's just cool to see.
Yeah. So I would imagine that, like, there's a lot of, like we just said, like, there's a lot of decision-making that goes into building a custom home.
Yes, there is.
How do you handle when people change their minds? Because people sometimes change their minds.
Sometimes?
Yeah, sometimes.
Oh, yeah. I think it's pretty much a constant. We have a system in place. Like, you have a change order. We have that signed. We agree, is it cost effective, or is it just something that the cost stays the same, but now you wanted a different color, And so we look at that. If somebody paints an entire house and wants to change the color, that's different. So in order to keep that from happening, we have little pieces of boards and we paint the color on it, and we present the color to the customer and let them look at a real live sample. Because if you've gone to Sherman-Williams or Kelly Moore, or just any paint store, they have a million of them little bitty cards, little 2x2, like a business card. And you walk around and you think it's one color, and you take it outside and you're like, oh, I see a totally different color in this. Mm-hmm. And so it's just important to make little samples so people can see and know what's expected.
If somebody were to try to get the most accurate color sampling, would it make sense to take the samples to the house, inside the house? Yes. Even though, like, the lighting's not on in the same way?
Of course. Yes, we do. We take them and we'll cut the board, have it outside, hold it up against it. Let's say the brick or rock has been delivered. We can stack it up against the rock, hold the shingles up to it. If that hasn't been delivered, we can go to one of the supply houses and hold up samples of them up against the supply house. They have like rock walls.
Oh, that's cool.
And you can look there and get an idea. Yeah, okay, no, I see too much green, too much blue, too much whatever. And then we just come back and revamp that.
Yeah. I did not have a healthy respect for how complicated color scheming was.
Oh,
I did some spec houses with somebody recently, and I wasn't involved in the color selection, but it was crazy how much thought had to go into it. And also kind of learning a little bit about podcasting and lighting too. It's like, wow, there's a lot that changes the perception of a color and a feel.
There certainly is. LED lights and the different color light bulbs. One of the things, like I use a recess light that has 3 colors you can pick from. So you just click the button and you don't have to go try to figure out, do I want my pendant light to have a creamy color or a bright white? Because you just get on the ladder and flip it over to whatever it is you want it to look like.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Being able to adjust color temperature, because not everybody wants to live in like bright blue.
Correct.
Or super yellow, maybe. That's really nice. So let me ask you this. I've kind of always, well, at least I've learned so far, drawing houses, is that sometimes people who build custom homes, like they generally want to build another custom home. And kind of like you mentioned, the wedding, not everybody's wedding goes exactly as planned. And I've found that plenty of people are like, oh yeah, we're going to build this dream home. And then what people don't think about sometimes is how fast life changes and the logistics and circumstances of their life also change. So have you had any customers that, they built a custom home, they're super happy with it, and then 2 years later, they're calling you right back and they're like, hey, we're going to do another one?
I had one that was almost exactly 2 years to the date.
That's funny.
And they called me and said, hey, you already know us, you know what we want, but we want to do this, this, and this. And we did this on this, and we want to change this. And I'm like, cool. So we set up an appointment and built it.
Yeah. I would imagine that probably saved some effort.
It did.
Yeah. A lot of like design decisions were the same. Did they use a similar design, or did they want to change things up?
No, they went from a kind of a rustic farmhouse look to more of a shiplap kind of look.
Okay.
And she had a great eye for designing, and she had like light colors, and the other one and this one had some bold blues and grays, and they did a shower tower that just like you look like a jet car wash going through the shower. It was great. And cool. Put a tub in front of it with a glass wall to see in between the two. Just, all kinds of neat little features. Put a lot into it.
That's cool. If of all of the things and combinations of customizations you've made, do you have one that's a favorite that you're just like, man, that was a cool story?
I don't know if it's a cool story. I recently did a house in about 45 miles from Waco, and they did the glass door, the glass, and then the tub in front of it. And there was the prettiest glass with flowers in it. And I love sunflowers, and it had like the sunflower look. Oh, it was, the homeowner called me and she was crying, and I was like, what? And I was just right around the road, and I was like, oh no, what is wrong? What's wrong? And she was just like, I just, are you almost here? And I said, yes, because I always tell them, hey, I'm coming. And I got there, and she was like, it's just so beautiful. Aww. It's just so beautiful. And she just kept walking around. I was like, oh, and I was like, well, don't make me cry. Like it was just, she was just so appreciative. And we did the kind of the cabinets where you walk through into the butler's pantry, but it looks like a regular cabinet door. And it was really cool to watch everybody open the door and go, what?
Those are fun.
That was really cool. Just something unique.
Are those a little trickier to execute to make sure like your cabinetry and everything lines up? It's a very tolerance.
But I have very skilled.
Excellent.
Very, very skilled subcontractors that are there. Custom cabinet maker builds everything on site. Again, he walks through with the customer and myself, and we say, hey, if you want to do this, then we need to put a little 2-inch piece here so that the door doesn't rub when it opens. And he's got all those, and and sometimes you learn on the trade, learn on the job, right. And not to do that ever again. Make sure there's a 2-piece there, and and that's part of life. But it's always corrected and looking beautiful.
That's great. Would you say that your subs are, I mean, you've been building a while. People's businesses start and stop. Has it been decently easy to, like, the best subs, they just kind of stay in business? That's a loud truck.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
It's all
I was
good.
like, what is that? Yes, the subcontractors have just stuck by me, repeat over and over, and it's been good.
Yeah. I would imagine that says good things about a builder because I mean, there's good subs and bad subs. There's also good builders and bad builders.
So one of the things I think that makes me a good builder from a subcontractor's point of view, besides the trust and the transparency and knowing the expectations, is I know that they need to be paid. They need to be paid on time. They need to know they can find me. They don't need to go calling for me. They need to know what time and where their checks will be ready. And there needs to be a deadline. You turn in your invoice, I have your check ready, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And it really helps make things go smoother instead of people thinking I'm going to not pay them, and they always know, oh, she's going to take care of me. Let me fix this or whatever. So
yeah, I would consider myself to be a subcontractor for design purposes anyway. And there's definitely some builders that are really responsive, and you can get a hold of them on the phone. You can, they're responsive on email or text. If there's an invoice sent to them, it goes like right efficiently through their accounting department. You're going to get paid on a Friday. It's going to arrive at this date. And then there's some builders that, something goes wrong on their end or something, and then, a payment gets like canceled or withdrawn, and it's just like tough people to work with.
Yes. No, I don't want to withhold somebody's money.
Yeah.
There's, and in theory, so if I'm building houses after houses and these guys are staying with me and there's something wrong, I know I can say, hey, before you pick up your check on Friday, that house you did over here, I need you to go correct that. Okay. Yes, ma'am. And it's all done. And
that's a very healthy way of approaching it
instead
versus
of saying,
holding it over their head.
They get to there and they open the box and they call me and say, my check ain't there. And because I can't imagine what kind of knot that would put in someone's stomach. I had a subcontractor call me one day and his check wasn't there. And I was like, but I put it there. It was really crazy. And one of the subs called me and said, I picked up 2 by mistake. I'm bringing it back. I'm like, okay, cool. So I called him. He's like, oh, okay. But it made me scared for a minute, or just that anxiety feeling that nobody needs to deal with. It's Friday. You should be happy for the work you've done and get paid for it accordingly.
Right, right. How would you describe, I've always looked at custom home building and I never knew a ton about how the money moved. But how would you explain to somebody who is going to come build with you if they said, so how does financing work?
Yeah, that is a tricky question because it's different for each person.
Okay.
So I let them pick their bank. I have some that I work closely with, but if you have another bank that you've always worked with, there's no need to invent the wheel. And then I send that banker over a draw sheet, and it's itemized out, and it shows how each draw is done and when each draw will be accepted. And then I send a little explanation that, if it rains for a month and I can't deliver the brick, then we take a 0 there, and it's an Excel form, and it'll take it off, and I'll draw it later. So that, we're not holding the whole entire job up over one thing.
Sure.
And so they know from the time they come in what they're looking at and what the money is supposed to look like. And then they have allowances and change orders, as we talked about a while ago, the change orders.
Right.
So allowances, and I'm just going to use an easy number, but if I gave you $4,000 allowance for a kitchen countertop and we went to pick it, and you found one that was 36, then they get a change order that gives them back the credit. If they found one that was 42, I write them a change order that shows the debit, and then that's presented to the bank.
Okay.
As well. So everybody's always in the loop of what's taking place.
Got it. Has there ever been a time when someone just, really cranked it way up above the allowance amount, and you're like, slow down? There
has been. Yeah. And I try to get a feel for, is that so? Sometimes when you get so used to the industry, you kind of forget that there's so many different levels of things that people don't understand. And it's just not in their wheelhouse. They're plenty brilliant people, but they start talking about, well, I need a level 7. So why do you need a level 7 granite? Well, so it's thicker. Oh no, it's all the same. It just depends on the pattern. Oh, well, I don't really need that. Okay.
Yep.
And then there's that case where you walk through and, I've done it too. You're shopping at something. You say, well, that's the one. I got to have that one. I don't care that I'm 3 times higher or 1 time higher or budget. I got to have that one.
Yeah.
And that's what the change orders are. I mean, you wouldn't want a custom home and some custom builder tell you, oh, I'm sorry, we're not doing that. So
Right. How does that affect like the bank's perspective? Because so I would assume that the bank is seeing some kind of total estimate that is coming from what you know.
yes.
And so if you have some allowance in there for $4,000 for a countertop and it comes out to, 4 times that for some reason, how does that, like, if you just keep pushing change orders, it's pushing the price up and up and up. Is there a point where the bank is like, hey, they're over leveraged, we got to do something different here? Or how does that work?
No, not yet. Anyway, hopefully
Okay.
that won't ever
Okay.
come about. Most of the bankers, they approve them. So if you went to build a house and your banker said you could qualify for 400,000 and you tell me that, I'm not building you a house for 400,000. I'd like to build you one for 350,000 and
Smart.
and make sure that you have a little bit of wiggle room and now it may not be a $50,000 difference. I don't want someone to say you said,
Sure.
but it just, it gives you a little wiggle room when you're not maxed out.
Yes.
And then if you need something, fine. Almost all my customers end up with some kind of credit coming back to them for something. Or they'll say, hey, I found this granite that was higher, but I found this dishwasher that was on sale. Can I swap the $300? Sure.
Yeah.
And we just write a change order and we sign them and they're swapped.
How do you prefer when you're building for customers to have some level of involvement? Like you just mentioned, if they find a dishwasher on sale or something. I know some builders that are like, keep them out of that process.
I absolutely like it. I think it puts their attention to detail, and I think you take more pride in something that's yours.
True.
When you're going through it. And when I'm sitting on my side of the table to bid a house, I have to bid a dishwasher at a price I know I can go any day, any time of the year and go get.
Sure.
But a customer might have the time to go from one place to another place to another place and find something that's a little cheaper. There's no reason not to save those nickels for them.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they're willing to invest that time to find something. Have you ever had that go poorly where they're like, hey, I found this great tile at Home Depot that's
yes.
odd sized or something's wrong with it?
Yes,
yeah.
We have. And I have to tell them, that craftsmanship is not there.
Yeah.
And if you want to install it, you'll have to sign something that says, the pattern's not ever going to match because the tiles are so poorly made or whatever the case may be.
Right. What would you say has been your toughest lesson? For example, I was talking to a builder a few months ago, and there was a mistake made in a multi-million-dollar home where the doorway had changed sizes. There's a big sliding glass door, and it had changed sizes partway through. And so the framers adjusted the size of the door. But instead of bringing in both widths to keep the door centered, they just adjusted one size. So no one ever noticed it. The door shifted over a little bit. And the way they had this huge tile pattern planned. And it was like everything was in line with the front door. It was all like alignment. And the tile guy who was coming in to run tile, which is you would imagine like one of the last things that's going to happen. He's coming in here laying out tile to find his lines, and he comes off the front door, runs it back, and he looks at the back door, and you can see that it's not centered on the back door. And the guy calls the builder immediately, and he's like, "Hey, do you want me putting down the tile like this?" And in his example, great builder, he decided, "No, we're gonna uninstall that door, tear off the sheetrock, tear off the siding, move the door over, fix it," and that's just far worth fixing. What would you say has been one of those like lessons like that where you had to pedal backwards a little bit to get it right?
So we had a gable with brick on it and then a wood beam at the bottom of it, real tall ceiling. And I actually was relieved, but when the customer said, I don't like it, I went out and looked because I had been staring at it thinking it looked like a church. And I was trying not to say that. So we came up with an idea and made an arch, and it ended up being beautiful. And I did not charge them to fix it.
Okay.
I took it down because my name goes on that.
Yep.
My reputation goes on that. And that customer is going to walk in their living room every single day and look at that. Now, they may not have seen the church. They may have just seen something they didn't like. But I kept thinking, love God, love Jesus, love the church, but I don't want to see it in a cathedral in my living room. I want to see the archways and the design and bring out the details and everything. Yeah. So, and it went well. So
good. I would say that's relatable in the design world. Sometimes when you're designing a house for somebody and you're going through that process, you may make a bunch of progress into like, yeah, we really think we got our floor plan locked down now. And then you sit on it for a few days, you come back to it, fresh set of eyes, and you're just looking at something that's just not quite clicking. And you can tell, like, as a designer, it doesn't feel right. And the customers are just kind of like, I don't know if I like that yet. And sometimes it's just worth it. It's a lot easier for me to delete lines and redraw them than to tear out structure and rebuild it. But kind of feel it's the same pain. And a recent one we were doing was this beautiful Mediterranean house. And we couldn't, the kitchen was at the center of this whole thing. And we couldn't quite, what we had done is we had built the size of the house to fit what they were kind of asking for and adjusted all the rooms accordingly. And there was just a kitchen that the wife had in mind. And we couldn't fit it in the size that we were working with. And what we ended up doing was saying, you know what? We're just going to move everything else. It's just going to get bigger. We're going to stretch it. And we're going to put this massive kitchen in here. And it was just one of the best decisions because you could tell as soon as you got it all done, you got it all laid out. We looked at it in 3D. She was like, yeah, like this is, now we can move forward. We can build this house. And sometimes it's just worth doing those kinds of things.
I think technology has really helped with that, having 3D architect and rooms that you can walk through and look at your little models where people can kind of look at them. Something about the way my brain is wired. Most of the time I can look at a blueprint, close my eyes and just see where I'm going with it. And then say, oh, that door is going to hit that door when you open that door.
Yep.
Well, that's a hot water heater. Nobody cares. Or that's really important.
Right. And
so it just helps to have someone that's experienced to look at that kind of stuff and kind of catch that before it gets to the before it gets to the construction phase. I
would imagine that regular people going to build houses, they haven't built houses, so they don't have that ability to see what you see. You ever had a time where somebody was just absolutely surprised, be like, wow, I didn't think that was going to look like that. What can we do to change or adjust? Or
no, other than that archway.
Yeah.
But most of the time, no, it looks kind of, but I'm seeing it and drawing it out and kind of, I've used chalk and drawn out on the slab. Like, this is where your countertop is going to come to, and this is where it's going to end. Do you want to bring that island out a little further? Because your island looks off centered. Let's talk about it. Now your sink's in the center, your stove's in the center, but your fireplace is 2 feet over. Let's talk about centering all of this up. So
that's really important for people to like get that in-person experience. What would you say, like, how do you manage as a builder the quantity of houses you're building at any one time and making sure everybody has the same, like the proper level of attention to make sure you get through a house properly?
That's a good question. Typically, there's never one house in the same phase as another house. So I might be walking through with the framer on this one before he leaves, asking the customer, does this look right? I want you to think of some things like, especially open ways in the living room. Do you have a chair that's going here? Do you need this wall to come out another foot? Like, just kind of picturing those things. But then I might leave there and go to another house where we're marking off which way the tile's going or which way the backsplash is going. Let's draw that on there and let's look and see, do you want it straight across in subway, or do you want to do a little zigzag pattern, or, what design do you expect to see? And kind of, I love to create things. So sometimes people go, oh, I hadn't thought of that. I love it. And so we change it up a little or add a little something to it just to give it a spark. And I keep pictures and things where people can ask me, hey, what did this look like? Let me show you. Oh, no, I don't like that. Okay. What did this look like? Oh, I like that. So, and it kind of helps.
I would imagine you have a huge repertoire of ideas from seeing all of the houses you've built.
I do.
Is it all backed up somewhere? How do you make sure you don't lose anything?
I hope I don't get dementia. Yeah, I have, like I say, pictures and displays and things, but really that's it. I mean, I can keep up with the latest trends through, like, years ago when we started, there wasn't any Pinterest.
Sure.
Now there's Pinterest and people bring you pictures. I want to do it just like this. And sometimes that works out great. But one of the ones that they kept bringing was, and it kind of faded in the background, but you had these drawers where you pulled open and then your pots lined up in these drawers. And what I would explain to people is each drawer has to have the exact pot size that's on that picture.
Yeah.
You can't put or smaller, but you can't do 2 big pots right there. They won't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this picture, and I'm like, okay, so let's draw it out. And so we draw it out and look, and they're like, oh yeah, that I can only get 1 pan and 2 small saucepans.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds tough to work around that. On the subject of of things being backed up, you mentioned everything was paper. I am curious, but we're very digital. We've moved fully out of paper. I personally totally agree. When you're reviewing a plan or you're looking at something on paper, it's just a totally different experience. Way more fun, in my opinion. I love looking at a set of plans. We recently had a little bit of a nightmarish experience here. Everything's digital, which is great, unless you lose your device. Oh. And we lost the solid state drive of the computer that had most of the stuff. Luckily, we had a good backup on OneDrive, but we had to kind of rebuild from there. The lesson I took out of that was that just make sure everything is copied somewhere else. You got to back up. How do you make sure that happens with paper? God forbid there's a fire or something terrible.
Right. We do have both. We have the computers that have, the blueprints on them and the PDFs, and then they're backed up, like you're talking about the OneDrives. Okay. And then we do have the vice versa. If you're doing checking accounts or whatever, we want all the invoices, a copy of them and a copy of the check put with it and put in each individual file. So that way, if the computer crashes, I don't have to rebuild. I still have to rebuild the bank statement, but sure. I can just take each check number and stick it in there. It's not like, well, what did this check go to?
Yeah. So. That sounds time consuming. Is that a thing you like to do yourself, or?
It is not. That's probably a short, quick answer, isn't it? I have a lady that comes in and helps me, and she works part-time, and she is just fabulous. And again, it's that team effort of letting her do that and delegate what needs to be done.
Sure. So if somebody was going to approach and consider building a house with you or anyone else, what are some things they should know?
Their land could make a huge difference. Huge difference. You could build the same house in 3 areas and it'd be a totally different price. So some examples of that would be, do you need a septic system? Well, maybe. Well, if you need a septic system, they're like $11,000 in one place and $18,000 in another. So where do you need the septic system? In solid rock or in clay? Which one? Right. Are you in which county? What does that look like? Electricity. Do you have power going to your house? Is there a transformer? Oh, there is across the street. Well, they're probably going to make you put one on your side of the street. You got to buy
a pole. You got to
the extension lines. Same thing with the water lines, utilities like that, and the soil. How compactive and expansive is the soil? I only do engineered slabs. There's a little children's song. That slab's pretty important. Build it solid.
Yes.
And so we have an engineered slab designed for that soil. Well, it could be different if you're sitting on 12 feet of rock compared to 6 inches of clay. I mean, they're just huge difference. So all that can make a difference in the price.
Absolutely.
And it has nothing to do with the square footage or what features you've necessarily put into the home.
Right. And it's kind of funny because some sites that have, let's say, rock, like say you're going to build in the hill country or Canyon Lake area or somewhere there's just, bedrock right there, right at the surface. Your foundation, if you're getting embedded in rock, it's pretty sturdy. You don't need a lot of steel and concrete. If you are putting it on clay, you would need a much stronger foundation to withstand the movement of the soil, right? But on the same token, if your foundation maybe gets a little bit expensive on rock, well, if you need a septic system, guess what? You're busting up a bunch of rock. And so there's give and take with both.
Exactly. There is. Driveways are another. Do you need
sure.
People will come to me and they say, I'm going to put my house in the back of the property.
Nice and private, huh?
And I'm like, okay, that sounds great. So you're thinking that's how many feet? And they'll say, 2,000 feet. Okay. And you want 2,000 feet of water line? And 2,000 feet of electric line, and 2,000, and then you can only go so far with electric line, and then you have to add a transformer and do different things. So, there's a whole. So that's what that sitting down and listening to the customer and them telling me, what does your land entail? I will go out and look at it. I love. Makes me kind of laugh. People say it's level, and if you shoot it, it's 3.5 feet out of level. So it's going to require 3.5 feet of dirt on one end and not the other
Yeah.
end, and that's not level. So,
Right.
but to the human eye, sometimes it looks level, or there's a lot of grass on it, or cows, or who knows. And they're like, yeah, there's some cows there, and it's level. And I can just see from where I'm standing to where it's at. So.
Right. And even if it was mostly level, like, I mean, even a light grade across a 50, 60 up to 100-foot house, if you can only go, keep your house out of the soil on one end, you can't, what do you prefer to build houses where you've just got like exposed slab on one side, or do you prefer to build pad so that the grade looks consistent around the house?
We build a pad.
Okay.
We build a pad. It's required by the engineer.
Got it.
Then he tells me how far out past the slab that it has to go. So
Okay.
if you had a house that was 50 square foot wide, he would probably make you go 52 feet, because you're going 2 feet on the outer sides of each. So it'd be 54 by the time you put your lines.
Got it. So they, in the Waco area, because where I came from in San Antonio, most of it is like you're going to get your embedment in the soil and just build foundation up from there. No pad work. For commercial, yeah, sure. But over, I found farther east, Temple, Waco, College Station, Bryan, like this whole area is very much like, now you're going to over excavate, get some of that junk out of here, compact, build a good base.
That's exactly right. The engineer requires compaction test, and sometimes he requires something like the earth lock, that stable soil. It stabilizes the soil, and they inject it down in it before. It just depends on what his requirements are.
I have not heard of earth lock. What does that do?
It locks in the P&I of the soil so that it doesn't expand or contract any more than when it's put in there.
That's the most important part. And for those that don't understand, the plasticity index we're talking about is soil can grow or shrink depending on how much water it contains. And it's very strong when it grows. It will pick up houses. Yeah. And
it's my understanding that was created. They used it under trains for the tracks, because it was constantly moving up and down, and the constant movement made ruts in the ground and then could potentially derail a train. And so they started using it. And I think that's where it started some years back, but don't quote me.
I have always wondered how you can put that much weight into the soil when a train moves by and just not have it move around. That's pretty cool, man. So how do you, on the subject of like cool technology and stuff in building, how do you incorporate the newest technologies, whatever it's the zip system or, whatever new insulation style or all that stuff? How do you incorporate any new methods into the old methods? Because on one hand, subs kind of like to do things a certain way that they've always done it this way for. And on the other hand, you'll get customers that are like, hey, I saw this great, cool video about this cool, new, super expensive product that we would love to put in our house, until they see how expensive it is. How do you manage that?
So one is to try to stay ahead of the curve of that. And I'm a member of the Heart of Texas Builders Association, the Texas Association of Builders, and the National Association of Builders. And so the training and things that come down to where they give you that information, I read a lot of material and look it over, go to training seminars, the Sun Belt show. They have the newest technology, so that hopefully someone doesn't bring me something that I go, I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then look at it. And I have had someone bring me something I'd never heard of, and I looked it over and I was like, okay, this is not for this condition of our environment.
Sure.
And so it's not good to do this in Texas, but they didn't come from Texas.
Sure.
And so, and of course those things can transfer over to Texas, but it depends on what it is. Cause we have one of the things is we don't have a need for heat that many months of the year.
Yep.
But we have a big need to make sure that everything is energy efficient and running smoothly for air conditioning and climate control, and to make sure that we're not leaving a fingerprint that would hurt the world on it.
Right. Have you heard of the cross-laminated timber, people building houses out of just solid wood slab walls, that whole idea? You ever have you known anybody that's done that in the industry in Waco?
I have not.
It's probably not very common.
I have not.
Yeah, it's a crazy idea. There's basically, imagine a glue lam beam where they just laminate pieces together, but they just do a whole bunch and they make a huge slab of it. And then they take these slabs and they cut out big holes in it for windows and doors, and they can build pieces onto it so they can interlock and make puzzle pieces. And it allows you to design very unique things, but it's mostly fitting into very unique commercial buildings or special applications. Probably a bit too expensive for most people's homes these days. But what would you say is one thing that you try to do on your homes that's different from a builder who's just going to build the average house?
So I have a 10-year warranty company, and you get that with it. And I'm trying to think of how to think of all the things that cross my mind all at one time. So the unique experience too is me.
Yeah.
My knowledge, my attention to detail, my scheduling, paying attention to that.
I will say it is very unique to get to build a house with somebody who's so connected. I know a good number of builders, and like there's a healthy range of that, but it very much sounds like you are like, if someone's going to build a house in Waco and they really want to be in touch with what's going on, like you're that person. You know, you want to build a relationship. You want to be there for all big important decisions and help them decide. And you've even got really cool design ideas on your own as well.
Yeah, I like the transparency of people knowing what to expect, keeping them in budget, keeping them in a timeline, helping them look for colors and find the things that make their home so unique, and that they can leave that behind as a legacy when they're gone, and that it should last the time.
Right. How can you tell when a customer is not a good fit?
Well, the one question you haven't asked me that I get asked sometimes is someone will say, so are you the owner? Where's your husband? Well, my husband is at work. Yes, I'm the owner. And a lot of times he will say that the man typically will say, oh, I don't think this is going to work. And I say, I agree. You know, if you're not comfortable with it. But the funny thing about that is most men want their wife to be happy. Mm-hmm. They want her to have the kitchen she wants. They want to have everything done just the way she wants. They just want to make sure it's on time and in budget.
Yeah.
And it's quality. Yep. I'm not denying that. And that she's happy, heard, and respected. Mm-hmm. And that's part of where you're dealing woman to woman.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, oh, you want to put that up there? You're not going to be able to reach that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So what if we move it right here? No, I don't really like that, but I want to move it over here then. Okay, great. And we brainstorm that together and look at those things. That's why it's so important to walk through and look at the cabinets. But there have been a few people that have come in and I'm just like, okay, this is not a good fit. And I don't want to stress you or me during this process. This should be a relationship that we should work together. And it happens sometimes. People come in and say, well, I was told. It's okay. Well, who told you those things? You know, let's talk about what you were told and let's look at those. Well, I was told by my second cousin's third wife that dug this ditch that it's going to collapse.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, you know, I need reputable sources of information.
Right.
It's different if someone came in and said, hey, I talked to this engineer and he told me I got this back. Oh, great. Let's, you know. So sometimes when someone will not change their mind.
Not even open to the conversation.
Yes, because they were told that somebody else that they knew someone that knew something, that this is fact.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we're probably not a good fit because I'm going to do it by the codes, by the regulations, by the deeds. I'm going to make sure everything's done right. I'm not going to change it based on you were told by somebody.
Yeah. You know, you make a really great point, especially like, you know, it makes in most cases, especially here in Texas, like I've definitely heard of stereotypes, you know, like, yeah, I don't want a woman building my house or whatever, you know, they're all she cares about is, you know, kitchens or whatever. But like, I would argue that when designing most homes, when I'm doing custom home design with people, that the guy just does not care to the same level. And so, you know, you can call it a stereotype if you want, but just like the woman's a very important piece of the design of a house. And so I find that very, I never thought about it from that angle. So I could see that being super valuable.
I think it is. I think it's valuable. And men and women, I'm not trying to draw the lines in the sand of who does what or who's expected of what,
Right.
but they're made to balance each other out.
Absolutely.
And so that's what happens. He's balanced out with, oh, honey, it's okay. We can afford the 200 extra for the granite. Or she's balanced out with, I want this particular model and I need it to do this and that. And they balance each other out. And that's what makes a good working team.
That's excellent. What does your husband do, if you don't mind?
He is an IT manager at Ram Aircraft.
That's awesome. The other fellow that I draw with, he's in IT. I don't know his title, but works in IT, keeps a lot of computers running. So that's really awesome. Let's go ahead and, if you don't mind, see if anybody had any questions for you, and we'll check that out.
Go for it.
Leah, do we have questions in the chat? Go ahead and check it on there, bring it up. We'll see if we can read it. Okay, so Your Health Unplugged. I'm noticing many new construction neighborhoods being built in my area of North Texas. If I'm considering buying one of these homes, what should I watch for when touring them?
Oh, that is a good question. I would say talk to people, talk to the owners, talk to the subcontractors. If you're going to go and look, I mean, you would actually need a whole code book to watch for every little detail that you wanted to know. Those things are tedious, but worth it. But I would talk to
people that are living in those houses.
Yeah. Talk to them. Hey, you have any problems in this house? What, and I've had customers that have come in and asked about houses that were for sale from other people. And they said, what would you do different? Because everyone's going to do something a little different. And it might be something like, I would have put the switch on the other side, but they may tell you then, hey, I wasn't allowed to put the switch on the other side. You know what I mean? They may tell you those things, or, oh yeah, I moved in, my toilet broke, nobody called me back. Who knows? But I would really watch the neighbors that have moved in and talk to them. I think that word of mouth is just so valuable. I survived the first probably 10 years on nothing but word of mouth.
I believe that. I believe that very much, and that goes a long ways. It does, especially for growing a business here in Texas. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, I appreciate you coming on, Amanda. This has been fun. I am sure there's tons of things people can learn from this. And where can people can find you? You have an Instagram that we linked in here, but you've got Facebook.
I have a Facebook for Texas Legacy Custom Homes, and then I have a website that's being revamped, and it's www.texaslegacycustomhomes.com.
Great.
And you're always welcome to call 254-715-1017. So
perfect.
And I do answer out-of-state numbers. I answered yours.
She did. She answered mine. That's why she's here on the call right now. And I enjoy working with her. So if you guys want to build out in the Waco area and have a great process, I mean, you heard exactly what she's doing here. So if you want a great home build, then check it out. And thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. See you guys.
Bye-bye. I'm too redneck sounding, aren't I?